Survivor News.
Survivor News. Survivor News. Survivor News.
Survivor News.
Survivor News. Survivor News. Survivor News. Survivor News. Survivor News. Survivor News.
What's going on? And welcome back to the Purple Pants Podcast, Survivor News, covering Survivor Season 48, Episode 9. Make sure you're subscribed to the Purple Pants Podcast. And if you want to watch, you can watch over on YouTube at the Brice Izyah YouTube channel. Make sure you subscribe. Give this page a thumbs up and let us know in the comments what you think about this week's episode. The baby boys have landed. We're back. We're all still in Austin, and we had a time in Austin. We have the first merge boot when DZ Holland was popping with you today.
What's up? What's up? How we doing? I am chilling. Lost my voice a little bit, but you know, I'm having a good time in Austin.
Yeah. And we have the Jack Shack CEO in the building. Jack Atkins from the Circle Season 2 was popping with you, Jack.
What's good? I mean, we had a great time in Austin last night. Just been busy with work today, but been looking forward all day to chopping it up with you guys. Hoping to see you both later out in the Austin streets. But yeah, I'm coming at you a little bit different camera angle today. I'm in the hotel, but hopefully, I look like I feel like I'm like sitting up tall, but
you gotta master the improvise, like throw it on top of a trash can or something, you know?
Yeah,
Jack.
Let me see what I can do, but
okay.
Yeah, there's not a lot of good lighting. There's not a lot of good. That's not a bad idea. Hold on.
I'm dead. But listen, while Jack is setting up his camera on the trash can, Austin, the city of Austin, I've got a lot of words for you. Amazing. I love y'all, but why ain't nobody tell me Austin was so hot? I thought it was going to be a cool 60, 70. Austin said, the baby boys is coming to Austin. We want to crank it up to 95 degrees. I was hot.
It's beautiful. Brice, you're in Texas.
I mean, I guess I just figured it was April, so maybe I don't know. But it was truly beautiful. The amount of, I don't know. What do you have to say about Austin, DZ? How do you feel?
I love Austin. I've always loved Austin. It's an awesome city. It's a young city, and like they're building a lot out here. There's a lot to do. There's a lot of eateries, speakeasies, restaurants, outdoor spots, rooftops. Austin's dope, and I'm glad we came out.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And I just found a trash bin. And now I can't. Although honestly, the other angle wasn't. I thought it was kind of a fun switch up, but
it was a lot of torso, Jack. It was a lot of torso.
I didn't know my torso was so long. But.
Oh, Jack. But no, there are so many people that came out yesterday. But I do a huge shout out to a faithful listener, a member of the posse. I guess he's a member of the Jack Shack. I guess he's a member of the Win Den. Tyler, was so great to see him. And, you know, he always has the nicest things to say. And just to get to see him in person, it was really so special. So it was like so good to see Tyler. So many of the posse that was in the building.
Tyler's dope, man. He's really cool. I told him I was going to give him a shout out, but you beat me to the punch.
I was also going to give him a shout out because he was one of the favorite conversations I feel like I had, not only last night, but just with any of the posse members. I mean, shout out to all the posse members I pulled up that I had a chance to talk to. But I feel like Tyler really put into words a lot of good things about this podcast that are sometimes hard to articulate. So that's kind of like, you know, why we do it. So to hear someone who I felt like understood what our goal was and maybe identified things that maybe we didn't even know. I was like, Tyler, you're spitting nothing but facts. So
he loves Jack. He loves you the most too. That's my only gripe. He rocks with you. He rocks with you the heaviest.
If that's your gripe, if that's a gripe, you're gonna be mad at a lot of the posse.
And there was another comment last week that I was like, oh my God, I have to bring it up to Wendell because we know Wendell don't be in the comments. Wendell barely talk. However, someone said they like the Win Den, but they really feel like it should be the Win DZ Speak Easies. I thought it was cool.
I thought it was solid.
The Wendeezy speak easies.
Okay.
Well, that's the working title. We'll
But
it's a better rhyme than I think the Wenden, but it is a bit of a mouthful.
whoa.
Okay.
Okay.
What's gotten into you in Austin, Jack?
Something you need to tell us. But listen, Austin, the amount of people that came out to show love was truly amazing, from the Survivor community, from my amazing race. Jackie and Lauren were there. It was like so special to finally meet the Purple sisters on Amazing Race. Quinn, Cassidy, of course, Cassidy's brother, the circle, our circle people were in the building. Abraham was in the building. Dr. Maria, Tevin. Who else was there?
The list goes on and on. It's DJ Karishma.
Yes, Karishma, the Amazing Race.
Yeah, I mean, it was. It's honestly, in the last couple of years, I haven't been able to come that many Brice and Wens. I think in the last 2 seasons, I've been to both the LA ones, but other than that, I think this is my first time since the 46th finale to be at a Brice and Wen that is not in LA, and it was good to be back because I mean, so many people showed out. Obviously, LA, I've been to pretty much all those. You get to know the community. So to meet so many new faces, whether it's people from the reality community or just people in the Purple Pants podcast posse, it was just a hell of a time. I had such a blast.
Yeah.
And when I closed out my tab, I was like, I had about 6 beers. And it was like $40. I'm like, this Austin. Told me Blindside Izyah the way I love to stay in Austin.
Like, whoa, it is warm.
That's a bar, but geez, that's terrible.
Being as though we are in Austin, and I believe Mitch is from Waco, Austin. It's not far. So the Mitch squad was in the building. Mitch's mom was in the building. And let me just say, I think I'm a part of Mitch's family. Me and Mitch's family, we see each other. We had a time. That shout out to Mitch's mom. Shout out to his family. Shout out to his cousins. Shout out to his aunties. That I just felt like I was at a family barbecue. They were truly so amazing.
Speaking of it, I mean, having Mitch out there was great. It was the first time I was able to meet him. I'm not gonna lie, I was a little bit nervous. I was like, Mitch has brought the whole family and the friends out. I was nervous we were gonna lose Mitch in the episode, but luckily, he was safe, and it was honestly probably one of the better episodes in the last few weeks because I feel like general sentiment since the merge it slowed down a little bit, but I feel like we're maybe heating back up. So really excited to talk about this episode with you guys.
Yeah, and again to all of our other special guests, if you know, the millimeters was in the building. We was feeling strong yesterday too. Okay, but yeah, this episode I had to rewatch it. And I've got so many takes, and I feel like we just need to jump right on in, like we're in Austin, because.
Okay, Brice. Okay.
So where do you want to go, Jack? How you feeling? What you feeling like?
I mean, Brice, you might have to be. Obviously, we were a little bit active last night during the episode. Now, I will say the bar we were at had a great big screen. Good speakers. They really cranked it up. I was like, I don't have to stand under the speaker for this episode. I could hear it. But obviously, chatting with everybody, missed a couple parts. And then today I was pretty slammed with work. So I rewatched it, but also was like doing a little bit of work. So Brice, could I ask you, could you be the moderator today and take us where we need to go?
I mean, I don't know if you can call me the moderator, but Jack, I can always take you where you need to go. That ain't never a problem. Whoa. So listen, it's a lot that happened, but I'm gonna simplify it. We get back from the Christie Tribal Council, and this conversation is really centered around David a lot, right? Like David, and this is what I want to ask y'all, right? David has his pulse on Kyle and Camilla. Like he sees it, he gets it, and it's like, okay, David, we see you. You get that Kyle and Camilla are working together, and it is shocking that no one else kind of really looks at them like that because they really are such a strong duo. And David got this feeling. I got this feeling, and I just can't turn it loose. There's somebody
is getting in.
Even Wendell doesn't know it.
Yes, I do.
Somebody sleeping in my bed, sleeping in my bed, messing with my head.
Jackery.
That
We'll
was unintelligible. I couldn't even. It
I'll
sounded
tell
like
you what.
an animal.
It's been a while since we busted out in song, and
Whoa.
we were a little pause. We might have been a little rusty, pause, but
Hey, just put a little oil on it, okay?
You set him up for that one.
all right, Jack, who sings that song?
I have no idea. I don't even know what the lyrics were. I couldn't even hear you guys.
Somebody sleeping in my bed, sleeping in my bed, messing with my head. Somebody, it's Drew Hill, and I think it's sleeping in my bed. Somebody sleeping in my bed. But essentially,
It's a deep cut.
Yeah,
it's not a deep cut.
the problem is, and we've been over this. The problem with all these songs, like it's not the culture in which it comes from. It's the year that it comes from. Y'all are giving me. You could give me any song from like whenever. I don't know. When were you guys like kids? Like 1962.
2016.
Wow. You guys can give It's if you give me that modern stuff, I'm gonna be a little bit better. So,
Okay.
Just keep that in mind.
But essentially, David is going around camp and he is paranoid. We're coming back from Chrissy, leaving out Chrissy, and David is just feeling like he can't trust Kyle and what's his name?
Shaheen.
Shaheen. And so we see the strong six afterwards, after the tribal, and they're talking and they're all saying like, who has to be next? And so we see David, we see Joe, we see Eva, we see Shaheen, we see Kyle, and they're all talking. And essentially David is like, hey, I want Camilla. And Kyle has to then, he's like, I don't know what
Brice,
to do.
He didn't say he wanted Camilla. You know what he did. And you know what you should never, ever, ever do is put the words in Mary's mouth. He said, Mary wants Camilla. And David, as Q would say, big mistake, right? But go ahead.
Yes. And so it's interesting how Kyle kind of navigates that, right? But he kind of just like, if that's what y'all want, that's what I'll give it to you. But obviously it's this big thing with Kyle because that's his number one. And again, I think the way that we see Kyle and Camilla, the more I feel like they're like an onion. As each episode goes by, the layers of the onion that we get to see of Kyle and Camilla is just so interesting because again, I'll be honest, I said in the beginning that I thought it was Camilla that was running this duo. And maybe that it wasn't so equally paired. But again, the more that we get to see of Kyle, the more I feel like it is very so much equally paired. I just want to know y'all thoughts on David's read. Is his read right that, listen, Kyle and Camilla, they're working together and something feels funny?
Yeah, he's right.
Yeah, this is the thing about David is that, I mean, this week and in previous weeks, he's been clocking everything. He's been extremely right about the dynamics. Where he went wrong was that he just didn't have the social awareness or the finesse to really go about, I think, executing it the right way. And I think David, he kind of knew he was right, but I think he's very used to, having his voice heard. And in this instance was hoping that, he would lay out the facts or whatever, which were true. and just have people jump on board. But I think it's just a little bit more complicated than that, and he didn't really navigate it the way that he needed to. But I think he was absolutely right. And I'll go one step farther, and not to bring us too deep into the episode or too far away, but I actually think it was a really bad move for Joe and Eva this episode to flip on David. But David just didn't handle it as well as I think like Kyle and Camilla and Shaheen did. So that's just kind of the outcome you're going to get. But
I don't necessarily think it was a bad move for them to get rid of David. I think that Joe made some errors this episode, and one particularly that stands out for me, but we can get there when we get there.
Sure.
When's easy?
I just think, like Jack said, I think that David just tried to muscle his opinion through to these people. It's like, hey, buddy, you are right, my man. You clocked it perfectly. However, if you see that if you get a temperature check and understand that they aren't feeling it in that direction, you got to understand when to pull back, fall back, chill, sit, and you got to go in another direction. This tactic of trying to explain how tight they are isn't working right now. Relax yourself. Like
you gotta know your audience.
Yeah, no, you're running into a brick wall. You got to figure out another way right now.
And so we know that David is not a Survivor fan, right? Like we know that he hadn't seen much of Survivor. And so again, when we see him say like the strong alliance, when people like me haven't won before, right? It again makes me think to David that maybe you haven't seen a lot of Survivor, right? Because it's like, in my mind, I really feel like David is ringing the alarm. David is like, hello, the fire is coming. He's like, y'all see the fire? But what he doesn't understand is like, David, we're at a campfire. Like, we're at a campfire.
That's a great analogy. Yeah.
And it's like, yes, we see it, but like that's the nuance. And it's like, David, you have to understand that you can't be too pushy. And I will say that in these last two episodes, again, David seemed a little off to me. Like, I really feel like, is the island getting to him? Is he not sleeping? Is he going through chocolate milk withdrawal? Because I feel like he is like so hyper fixating on this that it's almost like, how can you not see what you're doing to yourself?
Yeah, it's really interesting because we talked about, David hasn't seen a lot of Survivor, and I feel like a lot of times those types of players will go out there and they won't really understand the game. They won't really have a good read on things, but a lot of times they might still have really strong social skills to be able to fit in. With David, it was almost the opposite. Like, he hadn't really seen much Survivor, but he pegged all the dynamics. Like, he knew kind of where everyone was at and had a really good read of the situation. But I think what he lacked, and maybe this is a factor of him not having watched a lot of Survivor, or it could be a general thing, was just like that wherewithal, or the know-withal, as you say, Brice, to understand how to approach these different people, which can be difficult. And it's like, he could still say here, like, he's probably sitting at home being like, well, I was right. And he was. Like, he really clocked everything. But
you could be right in Survivor and go home.
Exactly. You need to understand how to present that information to the other people so they can receive it. And Brice, I really liked your analogy about the fire. It's sort of like, he's warning people about a fire, but those people might be a little cold. They might be like, let me stick around and warm up for a second. You got to angle it a different way. So, I think that really, I think David's story had a lot of nuance, but I think his downfall was a pretty clear sort of like the way we described it.
And another thing that I think that David doesn't understand, where I feel like the strong alliance, and I don't know if it was before or after the challenge, it might have been before, in that morning when they were all huddled up and talking, I was clocking Eva, right? Like, did y'all peep how Eva was asking people, like, so who are you thinking? Like, she was actively eliciting. She was actively eliciting or actively elicited.
No, you had it.
Jack, let him sit.
You already
Wait.
had it. You already had it.
Illicit. She elicited.
You said it right. No,
Jack,
I know, but
Eliciting-
you already had it. I don't-
It's eliciting. But that don't sound right.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
right. Yeah.
So she was eliciting names from people, but I like, again, because they're like, the power circle was so smart, and I liked how Eva, Joe, they don't say no names. Joe just like, wherever y'all want to go, I'll go.
and that's crazy because they be saying that, and then it's somebody that they don't want, and then they don't go with it.
Right. It's like so interesting. And if an active listener was a person this episode, it would be Mother effing Joe. There were multiple times that Joe would be having conversations and like he wouldn't make eye contact, but he would be in one of those positions where he's absorbing all of the information. And back to David. I just think with David though, right? I think, yeah, you have clocked Kyle and Camilla, but I also feel like you have lost sight of it is only one person can win $1 million, but you've lost sight of the fact that like you're in a group. You have to make group decisions. At this point, now it seems personal, and now it seems like it's something to benefit your game. And when you get like that, who's going to really want to work with you?
True.
It gives a little, it was interesting. And also we got to see more from Kyle this episode and peeling back the layers. We saw him and David kind of go at it, and we saw Kyle getting a little flustered and him saying like he doesn't really want to engage. He's kind of getting triggered. And then he talks to Joe about how he has a past, and while he was in law school, he got caught up, got some underage drinking, and he had to go to jail for 30 days. And now in my mind, I ain't never hear about a professor coming to, I'm like, Kyle must have a way with words, because that was astonishing.
You have a way with words also, Brice.
Yeah, I mean, Kyle's just the man. I was watching that, and I'm just like, this dude is awesome. And what can you say? And I think it really like that. I mean, they let him talk about it for a bit, in confessional. But given it was relatively a short time overall, like I think it like shed so much light on some things, not only Kyle's character, but also other issues like race related things and stuff like that. Because my first impression was like, if you're gonna get locked up for walking around with an open container, I'm like, I would have been locked up a couple times too. But then I'm like, well, me saying that, that's like the reason, and he touched on that, and he also touched on it on his Instagram. But I think it says a lot about like the justice system and things like that. And for Kyle he took a lot of ownership, but also for him to achieve all the things he did under those circumstances and come out of it better and better. I mean, I think he's just that's just a great dude. Like, it's really impressive. So, Brice, I know you haven't always been a Kyle fan, right? No, I'm playing, but I've been, as a Kyle fan myself, it was great to see. I mean, how do you not root for Kyle?
Right.
Sometimes when you have something so, shattering that happens to you, like he's locked up, sometimes you recoil, sometimes you want to quit things, you want to fall back, you want to take some time off. For him to have it in him to find a way to, while being locked up, contact his professors, finish his essays, have the professor come to him, it shows so much about Kyle. I got the most respect for my man.
Yeah. And I was thinking at times, like his interaction with David, like you said, he definitely did seem a little flustered at times. And I think that gave David a read at points that, Kyle was a little bit on edge. But I mean, given his background, it seems justified. But I think that was also another issue with David, especially in this episode, was just kind of the way that he would not go after people, but definitely he wasn't mincing his words at times. Like, even in the conversation where David's like, well, it should have been easy, things like that. And it's like, well, no, we just voted. What do you mean? Like, it just felt like David was sort of almost throwing shade, and I mean, he just kind of rubbed a couple too many people the wrong way. I think David had a very like he thought he had his group, which was like Joe, Eva, Mary, and then I guess like Star too, and that's the majority. And I feel like David's like, well, if you're not my majority, then I can kind of ice you out, which is not the way to go about things.
Yeah. It was also, I think this episode in a lot of different ways, obviously David goes home, but it opens the door, right? Like Mitch, we have seen Mitch. We know Mitch don't miss. We on this podcast see how such of a strong player Mitch is, but it really sometimes comes to be the luck of the draw of whether or not you're able to be in a position of power and how that affects you. And I think that with this episode, it really does open the door for Mitch maybe to like,
the game is open.
Hit something out the park, right?
Anyone can kind of seize control now, which is exciting. And that's partly why I think it was a bad move for Joe and Eva, because now David definitely seemed to rub Joe the wrong way this episode. I mean, I talk about not mincing words, calling him out on not keeping his word or going back on his word, which I understand from David's perspective. Joe sort of told him one thing, went and did the other, but I mean, Joe never gave his word about, voting for Camilla or whatever. And then obviously Joe took offense to that. And then David almost like doubled down. It's like, well, that's where you're going to lose Joe. But I do think if Joe and Eva stick with them, I mean, a guy like David who's so in with this group, and then, has Mary attached to him, going to do what he says, and they're going to stay loyal to this group. And then you have Star who seems happy to go along with this group. That's a winning recipe for Joe. It might be boring, but for them, if they went to 5 with that group, especially with some of the ammo that Eva has, Joe or Eva, I think, is a lock to win the game. Now there's a lot of opportunity for Kyle and Shaheen and Mitch to get together and shake things up. So, yeah.
Did you see one of those active listening moments when Joe was in that hammock just rocking, and Kyle was like, "You kind of went back on your word." Joe did.
David said that or Kyle?
When David said that, and when Joe let us know that he's mixed, in that moment, I saw.
You saw the black side?
I saw the black father, because you ever be doing something and you talk smart to your mom or dad, and your dad be like, "Say it again. Say it again." Because Joe looked over and said, "My word. Wait. You might want to back that truck up. So what are you saying?" And David's like, "Well, no, I mean, you said." David said, "We made a decision as a group. What are you talking about?" Like the way Joe came in on that situation, I said, "Oh me Lord." And
good thing he don't got no butchers in Austin. He free butchers down here.
Definitely, because I was hot in Austin. I didn't know where the moisture was coming this time. It was seeping out of other places, but it was so interesting. And again, where it's like, David, you're not even reading the room, right? Like Joe is essentially saying to you, the one thing that I got in this earth is my word. My word is bond. And you're essentially saying, hey, that's not what you said. And you see Joe get upset and very small mannerisms. Like, right, just for me, it was just like, he's getting upset. And then David kind of still doubles down. And I do love David as a person, but it was a little interesting to see the difference in how David. Say that again?
At the end of the conversation, he's like, "Yeah, my bad. I didn't mean to accuse you." Something like that.
Right.
I think I remember him about, because you could see Joe let him know real smooth and real cool and real calm. It's like, "Yo, no, I didn't. Like, yo, I didn't. All right now."
Yeah, you got one time.
Yeah, all right now.
And that was an interesting situation too, because like I said, I don't think Joe ever gave him his word of, he was going to vote Camilla. We obviously saw that Joe wanted to vote for Chrissy, but there were conversations where Joe sort of agreed to Camilla. And now that's different than giving your word. But I think that's sometimes where players like a Joe or David who value this loyalty so much, it could be a struggle because obviously you know that you're loyal to your people. There's no question that that's the case, but you're playing Survivor. You're still going to say some things that might not be true, and you kind of have to accept that at times. But I think some people in their heads are like, well, if I'm actually loyal to my people, then I could lie to other people, and that's not dishonest. And not to say that that's really what Joe was doing here. He was more just trying to be agreeable with this plan he didn't really want to do. But I finished rewatch. I rewatched Winners at War with my dad. We finished it the other night. And at Final Tribal Council, you might remember this, Wendell. I think Ben was like, well, I can attest to Tony's loyalty. Like, he always stuck by me and everything. And then Jeremy was like, well, yeah, because he never voted you out, but he lied to all of us and put us on the jury. Like, that's not really loyalty if you're only loyal to some of the people that you're working with.
Selective loyalty to your
that's what Survivor's all about, but that's just why you can't. I mean, to be honest, it's almost like David is playing a really loyal game because he's so in with his people that he doesn't really care to say anything that like good, like to whisper sweet nothings to the other players, and that's not good strategy. So you have to do something in the middle.
And it's like Joe is saying, yeah, we initially said we would vote how we're going to vote, but as a group, we had a conversation.
Yeah.
As a group, we talked and we changed our mind. And David's like, but that's not what I wanted. So you're going back on your word. But real quick, Jack. So you and your dad, y'all just watched Winners at War? Like y'all binged the whole season?
No. We had Ben working through it real slowly, like the last couple of visits, and all we had left this trip was the finale.
So wait a minute. So every time you come to see your dad, you'll watch a season of Survivor?
We try to, yeah. Well, I mean, back in the day when I first got on the Survivor, I was able to finally convince my dad to start watching with me after a couple of years, and then he fell in love with it. So there was a period of time we would be like binging them together. So my dad's seen a good amount of Survivor.
So you guys were on the couch, in the den. Where were y'all at watching this Final Tribal Council?
Just in our living room.
Okay. Did you have snacks?
We had some little ice cream.
Oh, like
it was a chocolate chip cookie dough.
Oh,
in a bowl or like on a cone?
In a bowl.
Any jimmies? Any toppings?
Just straight. Just a couple scoops.
Jack, do you call them jimmies or sprinkles?
I call them sprinkles, but I know Jimmy.
I call them sprinkles too, but I just figured I was maybe.
You thought I was a Jimmy's guy?
I thought you would be a Jimmy's guy.
No, wow, that's profiling.
Truly.
But it is my next question though. Is ice cream a good like? Did you get seconds?
I like a couple scoops, but if I don't go too much with the ice cream usually.
Okay.
I don't eat a lot of sweets, to be honest with you. But I'm not a gambler, but I will, take a couple scoops of ice cream. But I think when you too much it just starts to be a little too,
Yeah.
I'll go like two or three. I like to really let it get a little warm and swirl it all up so it's almost like a little milkshake. Somewhere in between a milkshake and an ice cream.
So Jack,
frosty.
Yeah.
Are you saying you're down for the swirl?
Oh. Jack's been known.
Oh yeah.
No. Yeah.
To swirl?
In some ways.
Another thing that I feel like this episode inadvertently revealed to us was there's also this other player, right? It seems like of the tight, strong alliance, right? Like I feel like Joe and Eva, they're solid, right? And then you have David, who's like okay. Then you have a Kyle, who he's got a Camilla, and then you have Shaheen, right? And so I think that like when David was really feeling not the love from Shaheen and Kyle, Shaheen reveals to us that like he feels like, or that's what Kyle is saying, that he wants to get Camilla. And again, if I had my bell, ding, 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 I loved how Kyle was like, okay, how can I protect Camilla, right? Because she ain't going nowhere, okay? Like I said last week, Kyle was tooted and booted on that ass to keep Camilla here. And so he wants to rope in Shaheen. He knows the order of events of how he has to go about to flip the strong alliance. So he's out here trying to figure out, how can I get Shaheen to twerk ass too? And I'm like, listen, you just gotta play a good song, and then bop, bop, bop. Just play Sexy Red, Kyle. Shaheen going bounce. But listen, I love how Kyle went to Shaheen and was like, the way David is coming after us is because of Camilla, and he wants to weaken us. And the way, hold on.
I already know what he's got to grab.
Hold on.
Well, Brice goes off and gets his britches all wet. That was a very masterful way to go about it by Kyle. He that's the thing. That's the difference, I think, between what he and David were doing is David kind of knew the right move, but framed it from his own.
What is this noise?
Whereas Kyle knew you had to frame it to make sense to the other person, and so he angled it in a.
Well, Brice is ringing.
I got some big britches today.
For those watching, he was ringing out some what's supposed to be white, but it looked more so khaki.
XL tiny white.
Not too much. My granny panties. Listen, the way that Kyle roped Shaheen in, but also it's like he did it in a very like HR corporate way of like bigging you up. Like we're he's coming after us. We're the threats. And the link is Camilla, and Shaheen then goes to his confessional and he reveals to us he's got a really close relationship with Camilla. And I don't think that us as viewers, I don't think that I knew that Camilla and Shaheen were really close. Do we know that as viewers?
Well, they've been like showing it sort of from an outside perspective where David's like Shaheen is trying to bring in Camilla, which I think we saw Shaheen said that he was. But obviously they were more worried about Shaheen and Camilla when Kyle and Camilla is obviously the main duo. But I think we've been seeing some starts of Shaheen locking in with Camilla. But yeah, Kyle framed it in such a great way. Like it was exactly what he needed to do.
Again, it's not like, all right, he's trying to get at me by going for Camilla. It's like, yo, he's seeing how he's clocking y'all. So Shaheen, he's trying to go for your girl. So it's like that is masterful. Great.
And that seemed to wake Shaheen up because Eva, this episode has so many funny edits, okay? Because the way they had Eva describing it, like, I waited till everybody was asleep to get up. And it literally was like you saw on the camera, Eva was like,
The Undertaker.
And Shaheen, in my opinion, was like, okay, so he clocked it. He saw what was going on. And then Shaheen, am I there? Hold on.
Yeah, you're good.
Okay, yeah. And then Shaheen, is that the best? Well, first of all, I wouldn't mind being woken up from Shaheen like that in the middle of the night, caressing my arm and telling Joe. And what's your thoughts on that, Jack? Because I thought, like, what are you doing? Like, you're going to risk someone waking up and seeing y'all.
Who?
Shaheen waking up Joe.
I don't know. I think it was fine. I mean, obviously, I don't know what his goal was there. Like, because you can't cast suspicion on Eva to Joe.
Right.
Obviously, I think Joe is Shaheen's, maybe his number one, but Eva and them obviously close. But I think ultimately he handled it well because the next morning Eva told them and Shaheen was like, well, she told us. So, that's cool with me. Like, I think Shaheen – I really love the way Shaheen's playing this game. And he hasn't really had a moment to shine super bright. But I think that's smart on his behalf because I think we know Shaheen a little bit, but even just watching, he's got game and he's ready to go. But I think he's also been really good about being patient, letting the dominoes fall around him how they might need to. And I think he's going to be ready to spring into action when the time is right. And I don't think the time's been right for him yet. But even his read on everything has like always been really good. I even loved at the top of the episode when he was like, it was a unanimous vote for Chrissy and there was a vote for me. He's like, in people's hearts, I don't think it was unanimous. It was unanimous on paper, but he could tell, and he was self-aware enough to be like, there felt like an energy that more people might have wanted to get me out. And so he was like, just honest with himself in being hyper vigilant. It kind of reminds me of like a little bit like Rachel last season, where just he always seems like he's hyper vigilant, really being smart, but also like really socially solid. Like he doesn't really have like a number one, which is through no fault of his own. Like he's always been trying, like, but it's like Joe and Eva paired up, like Thomas and Bianca paired up, but he's in pretty good with a bunch of people. And I mean, I can't say enough good things about Shaheen. I'm just waiting for that moment where he can really like do some damage, because he's kind of a free agent, but he's a little bit with everybody and he's managing it very well. And I think that's a really fun way to play survival too.
And when you put it like that though, Jack, I actually think, because at first I'm like, Shaheen, what are you doing? First of all, it's Joe. He ain't never going to turn on Eva, and it's in the middle of the night. What are you doing? But in retrospect, I almost feel like what he was doing was trying to sow a seed of just saying like, look,
yeah,
she up. And again, it worked out that Eva, one thing we can bet on is Eva's going to be rock solid with who she's rock solid with. But again, I'm not mad at Eva Shaheen just gently just being like, hey, Joe.
Because the way it worked out, and she told them, Shaheen was like, oh, it's good. She's with us. But imagine if she hadn't told them, then Shaheen could be like, well, actually, Joe, like, she and then maybe Joe would keep an eye out and lock in a little bit more with Shaheen. But it would have been a mistake once Eva told them if Shaheen went to Joe and was like, yo, she's got all this stuff, like, we got to get her. But no, Shaheen was cool. He was like, oh, no, we're good. And then like that's just like the energy that Joe wanted. So I feel like Shaheen knows how to work with all these different people and kind of customize his game and his approach a little bit to each person. So I feel like Shaheen hasn't had like a moment this season where he's like, we've given a ton of flowers, but I think his game collectively so far is deserving of those flowers. And I think that time is going to come.
He's a fun player to watch, and he's a great narrator.
That too.
Yeah.
He's super funny, like intense, good narrator. I know he was an alternate on a previous season as well. And I feel like I heard that maybe some of the producers were a little bit split, but I'm very glad we got Shaheen on this season. He's been really good.
Absolutely. I want to ask you all a question, and I want to tread lightly because it's about our girl Mary. And I'm a part of Mary's missionaries. And obviously Mary, she got to the Merz Beach and she said, get rid of the green. I don't bleed green no more. I need to get away. I need to find somebody new. And so it seems as though she has found David, and she's got what appears to be a solid number one. I'm just worried that her attaching herself to David, the position that it now has put her in. And then it also makes me wonder, like, say what you want about a Say, but is there a world that a Cedric and a Say, as chaotic as it would have been, like, as much as people were saying about a Say, it seemed like David had a Say episode, or David was having these Say moments. And so I'm just curious to think about, we see where Mary is right now with attaching herself to David. Is there any world where you maybe like, is a Cedric and a Say not looking that bad right now? Or is it like, we say before, make it to the next day?
Oh, I'm scared for a Mary. I'll tell you that. Yeah, I'm scared for a Mary because now, granted, I think Jack said this earlier. This might not have been the best move for the Eva and Joe alliance, because I think there are going to be a lot of eyes. That's the tightest bond in the game right now, as opposed to this big unit being the tightest machine in the game. There's now a clear tightest bond. I mean, other than Kyle and Camilla, but that's kind of so covert. Yeah. So I was scared for a Mary if this group kind of stays together, but I know that there's just going to be a lot of eyes on Eva and Joe and their artillery.
Yeah, I don't love Mary's position, but I get her stand. Like, she got to the merge, didn't really have any allies because her whole green tribe was a disaster. She was able to lock in with David and connect with David on the swap tribe too. And I mean, to her, like, the way that David sees the game on paper makes a lot of sense. If I'm working with David, his reads on everything and his plan are something that I, as an ally, would absolutely like fall and like be aligned with. And so I get why Mary, in that perspective, is like down for it. And maybe she hasn't even seen a lot of these conversations that David has had where he's maybe rubbing people the wrong way, because I think with that is when Mary should start to distance herself. I hope if we haven't seen it yet, or, you know, I hope we do see it going forward, that Mary can start to make some other inroads. But I definitely am a little bit worried. She put a lot of eggs in the David basket, and that was just clearly ultimately not the right basket to be a part of.
But she still is here. And like we said, with David going and with this Royal Rumble getting ready to hit the stage right now, I think that Mary could be a mover and a shaker. Now, you keep talking about this Eva and Joe thing, that it was a bad move for them.
Yeah.
I feel like, I feel like the Eva and Joe demise is going to come, right? Because the light has been shining so bright. And I feel like it's not necessarily a bad move with David, because I feel like David would have been crumbling the foundation of the Strong Alliance. But now that they got rid of the David, now it's like you're going to be attacked. But this is, I feel like the one move that I feel like Joe could have did a little better is when he won the reward. I definitely don't think he should have picked Eva. I think this would have been such a great time for him to distance himself, to make other bonds. Like, I feel like he should have took Mary. I feel like he should give these other people a chance to kind of move and shake around the David. Like, I don't know. I just feel like that was my one thing that I wish Joe didn't do, because it would have just allowed people to maybe not think of them as such a strong bond.
True. I mean, we just know Joe is going to ride or die for Eva, even if it's the end of his game. So I agree with you, but I feel like Joe probably knew that and was still just like, Eva's my girl. Like, it is. I don't know. And that's like, Joe's loyal to a fault, but that's partly why people love him so much, even the other players too. So, but yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I mean, this move against David definitely opens them up to a lot of heat from some of the other people now, and the people they were now, they just blindsided Mary and Star, and so they don't really have someone else who they're really solid with. I mean, I would be a little surprised if like a Shaheen turned on them right now, but I would not be that surprised if Kyle, Camilla, Mitch pick up like a Mary and then, you know, start moving and shaking. But I don't think it was a good move for them. I know, and I see why they did it, but I just think, even though David seemed like he maybe wasn't the best alliance partner, he was going to be loyal to that group. He probably wasn't going to get a lot of jury votes just based on like how he spoke to Chrissy and things like that. Like, even though like he might be tough to work with at times, but if they can go far with him, Joe or Eva.
But so, okay, now riddle me this. So, and I'm not trying to ruffle any feathers, but I feel like that's what I've been saying about Say. And so why do I get so much pushback when I'm like, if you know that how people feel about a Say, like, shouldn't we want to work with her and see, because you know she's not going to get both at the end. So I'm just
a couple things. Okay. I think one, David showed sort of an unwavering loyalty to his people. Say didn't have that loyalty. So you could try to bring Say along or work with Say, but David has told even the people he's not working with, I'm working with these people. Say is a lot more unpredictable. So I think you could try to keep Say around. Like, for the similar, I see what you're reasoning of. They might not get a lot of jury votes, but getting to the end with Say, I think is going to be a lot rockier road than with David. Like, David's the type of guy who would just, I think, vote with the majority every vote until they get to their 5, and then you play it out, and you're probably not going to beat them in a jury vote. But with Say, it's like I'm not really sure where her head's at. And also, like, David's people, he was tight with them. Say wasn't really as tight with any of her people. So who was really going to, Mary and Joe, I think, had every reason. They know they're close with David, stick with him. Nobody really thought they were that close with Say. Right?
Okay. All right. No.
That's Jack's laundry list.
Can we talk real quick about, we kind of jumped over the actual Eva advantage situation. A, I want to go over her decision making, but B, I also do want to say it circles back to last episode. I don't love that they basically handed her this advantage, and that's not her fault at all. Like, she should be taking whatever comes her way, but it just felt like it was a little bit of a setup. And I feel like, honestly, for Eva's sake, she's overcoming so many things, to do as well as she is. I almost wish that because now it's like, again, it's not her fault. Now I feel like people are going to be like, oh, but Eva got things handed to her, which she couldn't do anything about. And not that it was like handed to her, but you know what I mean. And like, why are we
handed to
Eva
her?
should be on the same playing field as everybody else. Like, because she's as good of a player. So I don't want there to be like, if Eva wins now, I don't want there to be like an asterisk, which I feel like a lot of people would put an asterisk. So that's why I'm a little frustrated by it. Not because Eva, like, take whatever is going to come your way. And she's doing it like the right thing. I wish that it didn't feel like it was a little bit.
Right. And I also feel like this, Jack, right? Because she has so many things now I'm getting paranoid like David, in the sense that in Survivor, normally when people get loaded up with stuff like this, they normally fumble the ball. They normally, it normally doesn't pan out the way, or they can never execute it how they want to execute it when you have this much bazooka. So for me, now it just makes me nervous even more for Eva.
And sometimes when you do have a lot of ammo too, I actually think that can lead to other players appreciating your game less. Because if you get to the end and you had, not for simplicity's sake, call it like 2 idols. A lot of times I feel like people will be like, oh, well, they have idols, we're not going to target them. And if no one's targeting you, then people might feel like, again, this isn't Eva specific. This has happened in past seasons. If no one's really targeting you because you have the idols, like, that's you doing your job with your idols. But people might be like, oh, well, we never really put heat on them. They didn't have to maneuver as much. Maybe they're less deserving of their vote. I felt like that's happened in recent seasons. So I don't want that to happen to Eva. But
let's get to the nitty gritty, Jack, because what I want to know is statistically, because what I was thinking when I rewatched it, I said I gotta ask if Jack gonna be on my side. Statistically, I feel like Eva did the smartest thing in stopping at getting the whatever the second thing that she got. Would you agree?
Was she? Sorry, I had a work text coming. Was she smart in stopping when she did?
Yes, statistically.
Absolutely.
I just want to know from the statistical standpoint of Jack reacted. Also, somebody said last night at the party, is Jack's name really Jackery? I said, no, it's Jack. They said, well, why y'all call him that? I said, because Jack a little black, so it's Jackery. Okay. They said.
They asked me that too. And I was like,
yeah.
It's not Jackery, but yeah, so sorry, a couple of work texts coming in that are, but with I'm glad you brought this up.
Boy got a job, okay.
This is what I wanted to talk about. I thought it was perfect decision making from Eva, where she gets the extra vote. Now she can either risk her extra vote or have a chance at a safety without power, 50-50, and you're not losing a vote. Well, I guess you're just losing your extra vote. But I think we could all agree, like a safety without power, much stronger than one extra vote. I feel like that can.
Wow.
You don't think so?
Depends on the scenario.
Of course, but I think in her spot, the potential with a safety without power is much greater than with just an extra vote. And I also think sometimes
no, because I say this. Why I say that is a safety without power, right? You're just removing yourself, and you keep yourself safe. But if you have an extra vote, maybe you could make a move that will really. That could be $1 million resume adding something to your thing. So I just say it depends on the scenario.
It does depend on the scenario, but like safety without power, you could also be like, Joe, they're gunning for you today. Here's your safety without power. Use this.
I think situationally, a safety without power, not overall, but some situations, I think a safety without power can be better than an idol sometimes. So,
yes and no.
Not usually, but
right, but yeah.
But it's close to an idol, and so an idol is better than an extra vote.
I feel like some of the pros of an idol, though, is that safety without power, you just remove yourself and you don't even vote. And so your alliance might need that vote. So yeah, you might be safe, but you're just going to be in hot water. Where if you do have an idol, you can still help the cause and vote where you need to vote with a vote.
But I also think it's extra help. Safety without power is even more helpful when you already have an idol, because then you could be like, is this, well, then you could be like, because then you could save it and you could be like, is this an idol moment or is this a safety without power moment?
Well, you can have a safety without a power. You can have an idol. You can have a shot in the dark, and you can have a
all of that's going to
be better.
If you only have the safety without power and you're worried, then if you only have the safety without power and you're worried, even if you think your alliance might need your number, then you have to play your safety without power to make sure you don't go. But if you also have an idol and that's the situation, then you can use the idol, have your number, save the safety without power for a time when a different situation, when maybe you're like, I'm worried and my vote doesn't matter as much. Now is the better time to use the safety without power. Obviously, of course, it's better to have more stuff, but I just mean her decision-making here, given she already has an idol, I think the safety without power, the value of it goes up because she has that idol. I think it's better than just, of course, the idol overall, she's better, but I just mean a safety without power itself, I think is even better when you have an idol because you could use it more circumstantially.
And I liked Eva's thought process about it. Essentially, she knows the position that she's in, and she's not even thinking about it selfishly. Like Eva's thinking about, well, with my tribe and my group, this would be the best for us. And I'm like, pop off, sis. Now, I do want to ask you real quick, though, Jack. So the first round, after she got, was it the first one or the second one?
So she got the power after the first round.
Okay. I want to know your thought process on the other one. It was like the two things she had to pick up.
Yeah.
One was like smaller.
It was three. There was two of them were lose your advantage, and one was an idol.
Okay. But one of them, wasn't one of them two that she had to pick between one or two? I thought that was like the second one.
Well, the first one was picked between, there was two.
Yeah. Okay.
One was safety without power, one was lose your extra vote.
Okay. So that's what I'm talking about.
Three. And then it was, okay, two of these are lose your safety without power, one is an idol. Right?
So I'm talking about the first one. Yes. Statistically, Wendell and Jack, when you saw that thing and one looked like bigger and one looked smaller.
They're the same size.
No, one was smaller and one was bigger.
Really?
I was wondering like which one. No, go back and look. One like because she picked the smaller one, and in my mind, I'm like, I would absolutely pick the smaller one too because you think the bigger it would have to have something, so they're going to try to trick you. So I would have picked the smaller one. Go back.
Were they really different sizes?
Yes.
Oh.
And so that's for me. That's why I wanted to ask you was like, where would your mind go if you had the option to pick two things and one's bigger and one's smaller? I think the psychology of it all is that when you see something bigger, it's like, oh, that's the better prize. And so I would think that most people would lean to that, but sometimes,
I don't know. I wasn't thinking about that because I thought they're the same size, but I don't know. I feel like I don't think you kind of just have to feel it out in the moment, right? But yeah, psychologically, sometimes the better prize will be in the smaller thing, and you're whatever. But I guess you never know with Survivor too. It's like, are they trying to like I feel like most people's minds jump to that. So it's like, is Survivor trying to like set her up for success, or are they trying to set her up for failure? Now, I think we know with Eva kind of what they want, but it would vary by person, right? So, and then so I don't know with that, but with the second part of the decision, and I don't know how big the scrolls were, but I thought it was also just a great call for her to stop and just take the safety without power. Obviously, for the reason that I said, like I think in some situations, the safety without power could be better than an idol. Like, you know, if you think you're going to be a unanimous vote, I actually think it's better in a lot of ways to have a safety without power, make everybody turn on each other rather than let everybody vote for you, play your idol, and pick who goes home. You might just be the next person out. And so for her to have a 2/3 chance to lose that and only a 1/3 chance to upgrade to an idol, I thought it was a no-brainer just to get the safety without power. If it was 50-50, I think it would have been a little bit more of an interesting dilemma. Even then, I think you keep the safety without power. So,
okay.
What did you guys think?
I think she stopped right where she needed to stop. I wouldn't have gone any more. And in the position that you're in, I would have been like, you're doing too much. So I think that she had the wherewithal to know that let's just chill.
She had the know-it-all.
I do want to talk about Star. And we love Star. I think Star is great, but do you, with everything happening with David now gone, and now we know the Royal Rumble is about to be on, what are your thoughts on, is there a path to the end for Star?
There's a path to the end for Star. I think there's a path to a million.
Yeah. I wish there was. I mean, I'm like annoyed every episode. I want more Star. But obviously, because we haven't really gotten much Star, it's hard to imagine her somehow coming out on top.
And so here's another theory of mine that I think we've talked about before. So y'all are saying y'all don't see a path to the million for Star as to what we have seen thus far in the game and just how the positions have locked. No thought of her own, but like, so that's what y'all saying.
Bro, you saw her run up on David and Mary with a plan, and they were like, nope, we got to do such and such. Like,
and so,
yeah, I just feel like people are like, all right, Star's here. Star can be a number for us. And so she's a addition to someone else's game. And I hate to say that because we love Star.
Now, I talk about this, how like in the game of Survivor, right? We only praise the winner for $1 million. However, it's like a relay race. They're still second and third place. And is Star shaping up to increase maybe her earnings by getting to the end in 3? Like, do people think that's still playing the game of Survivor? Like, I don't like. What's your thoughts? Because I feel like in the Survivor community, it's like it's the winner and nobody. But I always feel like, okay, if I know maybe where I'm at and I haven't been able to make moves, well, let me at least try to figure out how I can get to the end to maximize my payday. And I still think that there is game in that. And I also think that that is like a nuance that the Survivor community doesn't talk about enough because we only focus on the winner.
True.
So,
I mean, for people that, might not know, it's like what, second place gets 100K, third place gets 85, fourth gets like 75, something like that. So you're totally right that that's a factor, right? Star getting 8th versus Star getting 2nd could be the difference of like 60 grand.
yeah.
Now, and I'm not saying that she or anyone else is doing this. I think it's a very valid thing to keep in your mind. But it's not something as a viewer that I'm going to respect. Like if you're out there, if you're out there on Survivor, you should be playing to win. It's a very valid real life thing to be like, let me up my bread. But I'm not going to like ever want you back on Survivor if you're not playing the game to win.
But I just asked y'all, what do y'all see? And y'all said like, yeah, she just doesn't have the agency. Okay, and so I'm not saying that she's giving up, but I'm still saying that like maybe her past
Star. But I just mean in general, like, you should at least be like. But I know what you like. It's a valid real world. It reminds me of like in Winners at War when I criticized Ben for basically telling Sarah to vote him out because like the friendship he had mattered more than the money. Like, that's a valid, real world, genuine human thing. But it's not like I'm going to be watching Survivor and be like, oh, people should definitely do that. Like, that's just bad gameplay.
So, okay. So then,
boring.
Now let me play devil's advocate with you on this. And again, this isn't my sentiment, but what you are saying. So then, what do you think about Joe's game with his relationship with Eva?
Well, I think he could beat Eva. So.
Yeah. They both have a very
He's not
strong.
playing for second. He's playing to win and keep Eva with him. But I'm also not saying this about Star. I still
No,
feel like
I'm not saying about. I'm just saying
Yeah.
the position in general. That's where I have it. That's where I'm fighting you at. Is that I
I
feel
think
like
Survivor can change so much, even come like the final 5 or the final 6, that you always like. I get what you mean. Where at some points it might seem like sort of hopeless, but also if you feel like you're going to be able to get to like second or third, that means you're going to be at final tribal council too, and that's going to give you a chance to pitch yourself. Like, stay active and stay. I mean, obviously not that people like wouldn't try at that point, but I just feel like if you're there at any point, I feel like at least like again, I said like real life, real world, as people, very valid. But as someone that I would want to watch or that I would want to cast on Survivor, I would hope that you would never resign yourself to thinking that you cannot be first, because it's just going to make you play safer. It's going to be more boring. So like if someone does it, I'm not going to, if someone's like, look, I at final 8, I really felt like I couldn't win and I had to angle myself to like get second, and then they get second and they get 100K. I'm not going to be like, oh, like whatever, like valid, like go get your bread. But at the same time, if you're going to do that, like I'm not going to be like, oh, well, you're a great player then. You know what I mean? Like that's just a little bit.
I just also feel like that you kind of then just discredit.
You should discredit something.
But like there also is something to just surviving, right? Like to be able to maneuver yourself and put yourself in a position to be able to move. I think you're belittling that a little bit, and by saying like, oh, you're not going for the
on winning, then yeah, it should be.
But it's not giving up on winning though. Yeah. Like I feel
isn't
like
that what you're saying? Is that are they positioning themselves? They're lowering their chance to win, so they have a better chance to get like second or third.
No, I'm just saying you keep fighting and you keep popping off, but you also like you maybe I got this idea to blindside window and I'm floating it around, but ain't nobody putting up smoke, and I don't want to be a resistance. So like maybe when something else comes up, I'm like, all right, fine, we'll get rid of Jack, even though I'm like, we need to get like I'm just saying like
that's different. That's just like obviously I'm not saying like nobody, if the plan's not gonna work, then you don't have to like go
David it
balls out. Yeah, and it was bad. Right. So, but if the way you're describing it, I feel it's more so like someone be like, oh, well, should I make this move that could give me a chance to win? That might work. Or should I like hang back and be safer and play for like final and like play for second? That's the way you're describing it more to me. It's not like, oh, do I push a plan that's not going to work? Because that's not winning, like a winning Survivor style. But it's more like, would you not do things that could allow you to win because you want a better shot to get second? And to me, that's not very entertaining. It's valid, but it's not. It's not anything that the Survivor.
Do people do that?
They do. You're saying?
Do people do that?
Oh, probably. Maybe not. Maybe not actively, but.
I mean, yeah, there are some not so great players that are also not self-aware that are dragged to the end. But then they're all. Yeah. I don't think people are like, you know what? I'm gonna tank my whatever so that I get dragged to the end.
Yeah. I think if you're that type of person that is able to, if you're actually able to calculate that out that well or whatever, and like execute it, then you're probably not going to be in that much of a losing position in the first place to begin with, because you're probably pretty.
Hey, you're probably If you thought that much, then you could win the damn game. So
yeah, I do think there's people that might be out there that are like you said, they're like, I'm here. I'm happy to be here. I want to stick around. Whatever happens. I don't need to like win. So the farther I go, the better. And like, sure, but that's not necessarily like a calculated thing. But again, that mindset's valid in just like a human to human thing. But those aren't the most exciting people to watch. Like those people are not going to be asked back on another season.
We know you out here casting, Jack, but you ain't casting for Survivor, so you don't know.
I would reckon that Survivor casting would agree if someone. Like if you're resigned, if you resign,
it's not though.
They don't want passive strategic players. We could agree on that.
Well, I mean, we had a couple of winners. We had a couple passive strategic winners.
No, not really.
I mean,
but if you get yourself, but at the same time, that's a people like well, and that's why they're considered some of the worst winners, and why they haven't come back. It happens, but like they're not like think about people they ask back. It's not the people that sit around and let the game just go on around them. It's the people that and that's not to say, and also this isn't like this isn't me to say like, oh, if you got second on Survivor, then you're like a passive player. Not at all. But there are people that, whether it's second or 19th, that are just, just kind of passive, and they just don't really get asked back, and they're not very entertaining to watch.
Yeah, I'm just saying. I think that, how I describe it.
Sorry, it's a very valid question, Brice. So I like it. Yeah.
So that's all. I'm just, because again, I feel like we just sometimes don't give credit to second, third, and fourth, who, maybe in the end you didn't win. However, you still got there and you still had to do what you had to do to get there. And so, it's just not that talking about stuff. But
like, to be honest, and maybe not everyone would agree with this, I respect a 14th placer who like is out there playing more than and like giving themselves and taking shots to maybe get a chance to win, and maybe it just doesn't go their way. I respect that more than a third placer who's just getting dragged along. And I can understand if not everybody agrees with that, but like, and again, the second, third, like that's not. There's some third placers who play their asses off and it just doesn't work out, and they're great players. And there's some third placers that.
Have we ever had, the classic GOAT or someone that's getting dragged along to the end? Have we ever had somebody out there or that you can remember that's been like, I let them drag me?
What did Philip Shepard say?
You watched last season?
He said a lot.
You watched Survivor 47? I mean,
Survivor what?
47? There's something similar to that at Final Tribal Council. And it wasn't Rachel and it wasn't Sam.
Who was was it Teeny?
No.
No.
The fact you don't remember is kind of
Tsunami? Not too much on Tsunami.
No, not.
Well, it's not. But like, Sue seemed like she was happy to be there.
No, but also listen. I've spent an exuberant amount of time with Sue, and that's not how Sue feels at all. Sue was fighting.
I stand corrected.
You spent a what time with Sue?
Listen, you're not gonna clock in on me, okay?
Okay. Yeah, I don't mean. I guess also. I don't know. Everyone's perception, like I think, like Wendell sort of meant, like everyone looks at their own game a little bit differently too. So, I mean, as long as in someone's own mind they're fighting hard, however that manifests itself in the game, is whatever. Like I can't judge that. But you're right. Like if someone were more like, if someone came out and was like, yeah, I was cool getting third, like I just wanted to go, then I would. Like, you want to be real about that.
And again, I don't say like, oh, I'm just cool getting third. Again, it is knowing the people that you're here with, knowing what the jury looks like. I'm just saying being aware enough to know that like, it might not be my time. I'm still going to play. But also it's like, keep your head up, King. Keep your head up, sis. Like 3 is still that's still something. That's all.
Totally. Fair.
Mm-hmm.
Do we have any predictions as to, I don't like to watch the trailer for next week because I consider it spoiling Jack. But do we have any big predictions as to like what we think who a big mover and shaker could be?
I think it's time for those people that were outside of the strong alliance to start moving and shaking and flipping the game on its head. I think it's going to happen, or at least they're going to try it.
Yeah, I feel like next week could be the time to. I mean, if there's ever a time to go for Eva and Joe, I think it's next week. I mean, they're going to have 6 people on the outside of that alliance. You could split the vote 3-3, and I don't know. Maybe Star's not down. Maybe Star doesn't want to flip on them, but there's still some things you can do with that crew.
So, maybe because I'm a viewer, tell me, is this too much of a foresight, right? So, because in my mind, if we go after Joe and Eva, right, and we can break that duo, then as a viewer, then I'm like, then the next power players are going to be Kyle and Camilla, right? And so it's like, I just wonder if there's anyone, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's like a lot to clock. And so it's like, if someone could get into power and say you knock down a Joe, or Eva that weakens them. And then it's like the next duo that we as viewers get to see are like Kyle and Camilla. And so I'm just wondering if there's any calculation to be like, okay, we got to boom, boom, boom. Like, I don't know.
We could watch a bunch of big dogs go out over the next few weeks. It could happen because getting rid of David exposes Joe. Getting rid of Joe exposes Eva, Kyle. Like we could see there's potential,
and that's where I just say Shaheen there, right? I feel like that.
Go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was
gonna say, but now some of these big dogs are the ones who turn the tables a little bit already, and so of this strong 5 alliance, the only real big targets left in that are that Eva and Joe duo. And so if for a shot to be fired at them is going to, take a big play. And then if you look at like Kyle, Shaheen, Camilla, I mean, they like if there's more like the Joe and Eva are sort of the last of that strong 5 group. And so whether it's them getting attacked or it's other players trying to turn on each other, I don't know if it's going to be like big dogs per se, but I think it will get interesting.
Is there a world where we could see a shot like me as a viewer? I would love a Star, Mary, Shaheen, and a Mitch. Like that would shake the tables.
Maybe. I don't know. That seems kind of a random group right now.
But I'm just saying though, I'm just in my mind of the people that.
Yeah. Like so I mean, I think it would be more of like a Camilla, Kyle, Mary, Mitch, and then they try to pull in like Shaheen. I think that's a 5 I think that 5 would be the best to go against like Joe, Eva, Star. I don't know if I feel Star is pretty with Eva and Joe.
Do we also if the strong guy alliance, if the honor and integrity alliance goes down, do you think maybe it might be a world where it's like the votes shift every week? Could it go back to what we've seen maybe in more recent Survivor of they look scattered every time?
I also do see a world where Kyle and Shaheen and Joe and Eva are still a core group, and then they take out like a Mary, and then they take out like a Mitch, and then we have a couple boring weeks. I actually think that's pretty possible. And then once it gets down to it, then it's like Shaheen, Kyle, and Camilla versus like Star, Eva, and Joe. Is I think what it could look like too. But I think at least again, it's going to be interesting, right? Like the last few weeks were a little bit more predictable.
Yeah, I mean, I almost felt like this episode, just how it was playing out, was a little predictable as well, in the sense of like just Daviding. I could see it. It wasn't like a, oh my God, I couldn't believe that happened.
Agree, but it was like at least an interesting sort of downfall and turning of the tables a little bit.
Yeah.
No, open the game up more, I think.
I'm hoping that he got his chocolate milk. But listen, this was definitely we cracked the egg. I feel like next episode the yolk might be pouring on out. And we gonna see if the egg is gonna get scrambled or it's gonna get poached or it's gonna get sunny side up. I'm excited to see where it happens. I feel like I said this 3 weeks ago, but I feel like next episode is when the second half of Survivor, the stove is going to be cooking on the pot's going to be cooking on the stove. But listen, we'll be in Philadelphia next week for Brice and Win 48. So you can get your tickets. Click the link in the Instagram bio, Brice and Win, or you can head to briceandwin.com and get your tickets. We still got Philadelphia. We still have DC. We still have Boston. We still have the grand finale of New York. From here, inside the warm Austin, we thank you for listening. This has been any last words before I take us on home?
No. Take us to the house.
Okay, we gonna give a little one. We're gonna give one to a little grace. Okay, last week he was cooking. We had clocks emojis in the thing. Okay,
Wendell was active this episode. Wendell's been good.
Nope.
If we gotten to this point of the episode, what emoji should they be putting in the comments with DC?
An orange.
Put it on orange emoji.
Oh, pull us out of Austin, Brice.
Oh, let's stay in. This has been your Survivor News, covering Survivor Season 48, Episode 9. We'll be back next week. Thanks for listening.
It's the Purple Pants Podcast. You better listen in public, might make your stomach hurt. Ooh. It's the Purple Pants Podcast. You're trying to unwind, you better get that box wine. It's the Purple Pants Podcast. You're trying to get your snack, you better hurry right back though. It's the Purple Pants. It's the Purple Pants.